Now, it's been 4 months of Israel war on Hamas. There's no end to war in sight, and over 100 hostages are still held captive by the Hamas. To discuss this further on the latest situation on the war and the trade route on Red Sea being impacted in a connected military escalation, I'm joined by the Consul General of Israel to South India, Tammy Ben-Haim. Ms. Haim, thanks so much for joining us. And my first question to you is essentially about where we are at the moment. It's been more than 100 days of the war. Do we see an end in sight?
Here in Israel, and I've been spending the past week here, everybody or almost everybody, want this to come to an end. But in order to come to an end, we have to first and foremost free the 136 hostages, people who were kidnapped, who are still held by Hamas in Gaza. And of course, the other aim of the war is to make sure that Hamas is not, the terrorist organization is not able to ever attack Israel again, not in the manner that they did on October 7th and not at all. So when we ask about the end, there was negotiations last week, a summit in Paris, where the Egyptians led and the Americans and Qatar tried to come to some sort of deal for the hostages for a ceasefire. And we're all still waiting for the Hamas terror organization to answer us. But Hamas, sadly, being a terrorist organization, having no respect and no thought of human life, hasn't even returned to us with what framework they're even willing to talk about.
Right. Ma'am, you referred to the hostage situation there. So what's the latest on the hostage rescue mission?
Israel is in Gaza at the moment. The IDF forces defense forces are in Gaza fighting. Every day, they're either eliminating terrorists or arresting terrorists, eliminating tunnel shafts, more and more weapon storages that we find. And one of the goals is to try to use information, try to use intelligence, try to use things we recover from some of the tunnels to see where the hostages are. But the infrastructure of tunnels, initially we thought it was about 500 kilometers of tunnels, which is a lot. Now we know that it's over 700 kilometers of tunnel under all of Gaza that was used by the Hamas, abused maybe for this purpose. So, we're hoping, every day we keep searching. But we think the more logical way, the way it will be some sort of hostage return for ceasefire.
There's also major criticism Israel is facing, Ms. Haim, especially we heard the World Court telling Israel to prevent a genocide in Gaza. How would you assure the world that Israel is keeping those provisions in mind?
Yeah, you're right. It's, war is hard and war is sad and tough. And definitely the same, the civilians in Israel are displaced and are suffering, and the civilians of Gaza are displaced and are suffering. But what I can say for this is from the first moment, Israel and the IDF have done everything they can, first and foremost, to save civilian life in Gaza. You've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, and hopefully your viewers, so many pictures and videos of soldiers, Israeli soldiers, trying to get civilians to the southern part of Gaza, to Rafah, to be as safe as possible, where Hamas was trying to stop them from going, because Hamas doesn't care for their lives. Also, the amount of humanitarian aid that goes into Gaza every day, which Israel obviously helps facilitate. Over 200 trucks each day with food, water, medical supplies. The number of field hospitals in Rafah now is very high as well.
Now, the Red Sea route affects multiple countries. This is, of course, another aspect that we are looking at. And this route is important because of the trade link. And several countries have an interest there, including India. What are you doing to assure more security in the region?
You're very right. And we're saying it from the beginning. Look, Iran, the Iranian regime, is the mastermind and the main funder and the main supplier of weapons and training to all the terrorist organizations on the Israeli border. We have Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. We have the Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're all funded and guided by the Iranian regime, who is looking to destabilize the world. In the same way, the Iranian regime is using the Houthis the terrorist organization within Yemen, in order to block and to harm international trade routes. This is obvious. And as you said, India is affected, Britain, United States. That is why there is an international coalition at the moment to fight the Houthis. And we see that many of their rockets are being stopped and missiles. Some of their camps and command centers are being bombed by this coalition because, again, Iran is doing what it can to destabilize the region against Israel and against the international trade route. And some of the missiles that the Houthis are launching cost $8 million per missile. Now, obviously, the funding is coming from Iran. So you're right, Israel and like-minded countries, including the United States, including our good friend India, have to align together to not allow this to happen, to not let Iran achieve its goal of destabilizing all of us, of hurting all of our economies, of causing damage that will take years to fix.
And Ms. Haim, how does Israel view the military escalation vis-a-vis the Houthi rebels in the region? And by this I mean US has said strikes will continue if American soldiers are harmed. According to you, will that escalate violence in the region even further or bring peace?
We're, of course, hoping that it brings peace. This has been, before October 7th, Israel wasn't at war, wasn't planning to do anything vis-a-vis Hamas. We were planning to go on with life as usual. And we're hoping to go back to that. Listen, we're very clear, and this is our stand, and we believe this needs to be the world stand. You can't remain silent, and you can't think that you can appease terrorist organizations or terrorist regimes, or those regimes fund them. If somebody thought that something could be done quietly or through negotiations with these regimes, apparently it can't. They don't hold human life in the same regard as we do. Their aims, their goals are not the same as ours. They don't care about their civilians. They don't care about bettering the life of the people living in the countries that they control. Their main aim for us, Israel specifically, is to definitely annihilate or destroy Israel. But for the world, it's to cause instability, to cause war, to cause havoc. So there's no other choice except to fight them united, and make it very, very clear that this is unacceptable. And that the world is, we know India definitely with the presidency of the G20 was very clear that she wants regional roots, stability everywhere for the betterment of all of us.
Right. Ms. Haim, this is a bit of an aside from what we've been discussing so far. This is with reference to your recent online post about Indo-Israel defense equipments. Are we going to see increased defense cooperation between India and Israel, which will also involve private players?
Look, our official relationship between Israel and India started 30 years ago. We've had relationships before. They officially started 30. At the end of Jan, we celebrated 32 years. And I'm referring to that because our trade and commerce and cooperation and joint ventures has gone up immensely in all fields, including in defense cooperation. Now, look, I'm not privy to this deal. It's a private deal, and I'm very happy for it. But definitely, the only trajectory we have to go is up and more. Many of the issues that Israel faces, we're tiny, India is huge, but the issues we face, the core issues are very similar. Our minds work alike. We put a lot of investment in research and development, in higher education, in our engineers. So absolutely. And I think in some ways, this horrible war that Israel is going through at the moment just solidifies it and proves it, that one, we have a very good, solid, strong partnership, but it's just going to grow from there.
Ms. Tammy Ben Haim, Consul General of Israel to India, thank you so much for joining us.